Hi, everyone. Can you let me know that you can see and hear us? I'm a little paranoid about our earlier problem with having sound come through when we were in the Nexus class. So just let me know if you can hear us or hear me. And welcome, if you can, to our Halloween special. We are still waiting for Jan to come in, but for the moment, Mark and I are here. And thank you for letting me know that. We have kind of a fun idea. I'm going to say hi to you guys in a second. This was actually suggested by Morg because we are starting shadow season with, as you know, for people who've been around for a long time, Halloween starts shadow season. I know it's a little early, just the way it worked out with our Sunday nights. And we were a little before before Halloween, but that's okay. And what we're going to do is we wanted to talk about like Halloween movies or just horror movies. And Morg said, why don't you talk about shadow in film, which I thought was a fantastic idea, and immediately thought of a couple movies that I liked that featured shadow content. And hi Morg. I just saw Morg say hi. And Mark has some amazing examples, and so does Jan, has some very interesting ones. So I hope Jan makes it here. Otherwise, we're just going to wing it, and this is going to be a really fun, relaxed one. Yes, you do remember shadow season every year, Angela. Good. This is a time of year from Halloween all the way through until New Year's. There's lots of holidays, and because of families getting together and there's stress in getting presents and traveling, there's a lot of shadow content that comes up. So it's a perfect time to recognize that and to look into your own shadow. So bringing up the theme of movies was just a really good fun way, because we always want to do something kind of fun and relaxed for Halloween. And hi, I saw Melinda, who I haven't seen in a long time. Welcome. So I think we're just going to get right into it, because sometimes giving the synopsis of the film, which is necessary, can take a little bit of time. And I think if you saw the thumbnail, you saw, I'm pretty sure, recognizable characters from films. The two movies that I'm going to be talking about are Black Swan and the movie Us. So I think, and then we're just going to interchange with each other. And then you guys please hop in with questions or comments of your own. But fair warning, there will be spoilers, because it's really hard to talk about this content without giving away a lot. So I'm just going to hop right in with Black Swan, which came out in 2010. And it was, Angela, it's your favorite film? Yeah, I rewatched both of mine because I hadn't seen them in such a long time. And I got so much more out of it since I was on the lookout for the content. I was really paying attention to when things what's happening. It does have scenes that are spicy, it's true. But it has a lot of really interesting shadow content. One of the strongest movies for that. And of course, Mark has one too. So just really quickly, if you haven't seen it, again, spoilers. So if you are planning on watching it, it's fairly old. Most people have probably seen it. It's about a ballerina her name is Nina, played brilliantly by Natalie Portman, who I'm positive won the Oscar for that performance. And that movie was up for several Oscars, but she won for her performance, which was incredible. Spiral into madness, basically. So she's a ballerina, and she is competing for the lead in Swan Lake. And if you're not familiar with Swan Lake, all you need to know really is that there are two female characters, two different swans. There's the white swan and the black swan. And the white swan represents, she's like the princess who has been cursed by an evil sorcerer to be she can be the princess at night, but she's a swan by day, and like literally a swan. And she's sort of innocent and represents purity and all of those kind of positive characteristics. And the black swan is a evil like sorcerer's daughter. And she represents a much more darker side, much more sensual side. And Nina, our main character, very much identifies with her personality is very much white swan. And the director, sleazy artistic director played by Vincent, I think his last name is Cassell, he tells her, you're white swan, but you can't access this other part of you that you need to in order to authentically portray the black swan. And she's frustrated by this and says she can do it. He eventually gives her the role, so she secures it. She lives with her mother, who's very very controlling, and Nina is very repressed. She's sexually repressed. She's just unable to tap into any of those parts. She's kind of neurotic and very much wants to be a perfectionist. And she just, even though she got the part, she can't grab what she needs to. She's very frustrated and frustrating the artistic director, who tells her to observe another ballerina named Lily, played by Mila Kunis, who looks strikingly like Natalie Portman's character. They look very similar. But the darker aspects, all of that shadow content, is very natural to Lily. And the two go out for an evening together, and Lily encourages her to sort of loosen up a bit, which she does, but she starts to unravel a bit, and you realize that, or you discover that she's having hallucinations. She's sort of having some psychotic episodes, and she's just, her desire to connect to her shadow to be effective in this role is taking its toll on her, and you're not really sure what's real, what isn't. In some parts it's a very interesting unraveling and spiraling while she's determined to go on stage and perform. She starts to be very suspicious of Lily, that Lily's trying to take the part from her, especially when Lily is given the job as being alternate to her. And there's several things that ensue that I don't really need to tell you about too much, but just understand that she's basically falling apart mentally when she arrives for the opening performance. And she, in white swan form, it's the white swan performs, and then the black swan performs, and then the white swan. Now it's important to know that in Swan Lake, almost always, both the white swan and the black swan are portrayed by the same ballerina, which is why that person has to have the ability to tap into both sides in order to authentically portray it. And as I've said, Nina has problems. She has had problems identifying with her darker side, her shadow. So she arrives to do it sometime during the performance, and not right at the beginning, but into it a bit. She falls, and the director is absolutely furious, and Lily starts to prepare to go on and perform the Black Swan, which is obviously what we know is the really difficult one for Nina. Nina goes into the dressing room, confronts Lily. They start to fight because they're both saying, it's my turn, it's my turn. And they break a mirror in the scuffle. And at one point, Lily's face turns into Nina's, like Nina's kind of choking her or battling her on the ground, and she appears to be Nina for a minute. Eventually she stabs Lily in the stomach, hides her body with a shard from the mirror, and hides her body in the bathroom, goes on stage and performs brilliantly as the Black Swan. She has now embodied that side of herself. And it's incredible, her performance, and just the way, the costuming and what they do with special effects to portray it, is just, to watch that one scene is amazing. And after she gets off stage, Lily walks up to her and says, "That was amazing. You were so good. I didn't think you could do it, but you did." And Nina is like, "What the hell? What are you doing walking around? I've left you in the bathroom. I stabbed you." She goes in, there's no body, nothing. And she looks down and discovers that she has the mirror shard in her stomach, embedded in her own stomach. She fought herself and stabbed herself. She goes out and performs the final dance as the White Swan, and then dies, which is what happens in the actual ballet. And her last line is, "It was perfect," which is what she always wanted to be. So I hope I said that. I hope I did that. It didn't take too long. Really good movie, and I highly recommend it. One of my favorite parts in terms of the shadow content, loved the way they used mirrors, and especially the shard of the mirror when she had the fight. But also something I really liked was that how she was telling the artistic director, when she was struggling to bring out, to connect with her shadow self, she says, "I want to be perfect." She said that several times. He even said, "You want to be perfect," but perfection is not what's going to save you. That's not what's going to get you where you need to be in order to dance this role. He wanted her to let go, loosen up, be wild, be crazy. And that is that kind of potential for creativity is what we have in our shadows. So interacting, like integrating your shadow self can mean connecting with those parts of you that will bring all of that out. Now, unfortunately, Lily does not integrate her shadow. She becomes shadow possessed and succumbs to it. And the other movie I'm going to talk about also has some of the same issues and also uses mirrors. But yeah. Oh, did I ruin it for you, Zeus? It's been out for such a long time. I kind of was hoping that I wasn't going to ruin it. Oh, Lee liked it too. Okay. Yes, she did, Angela, exactly. She killed herself. It was so mind-boggling for me the first time. I don't think I got over the fact that it was so shocking that she had dragged Lily's body into the bathroom. And I don't think I recovered from that in order to really enjoy her performance and see what was coming. This time it was like I knew what was coming, and I could see a lot more of the shadow content and the fact that she had battled herself, and then she lost herself in the Black Swan, and she performed it, and she did access that part of her and perform brilliantly. Oh good, I'm glad you don't care about spoilers. I recommend it. I think it was free on Prime. I don't think I watched so many movies this week in preparation for this, because even though I'd seen these, I wanted to rewatch them. Now, I have a question, Angela. Was Lily an actual illusion the whole time? Because I thought she was real. Like other like the director interacted with her and gave her the part as the alternate, and I wondered that too, Mark, if she was maybe, that's originally what I thought, but when I watched it the second time, I noticed that she was very upset when she found out that the director had given the alternate position, it's like the understudy, to her. And I don't know that could have happened if she didn't actually exist. So I was a little bit confused, because I seem to have remembered that she was an illusion. But either way, it doesn't really matter. She did descend into madness. she did hallucinate. She hallucinated the scene that Spectral was talking about earlier. And, it's one of the reasons that, yeah, I felt, oh, Ren said the same thing, felt that she was an illusion. That's what I thought the first time. If you guys watch it, or watch it again, please let me know. Okay, in the meantime, I've taken up my 20 minutes. And poor Mark has just been sort of, getting ready over there. Yeah, okay. Spookadelic says Lily was real, some interactions. Yes, she did hallucinate a very particular scene that Lily tells her the next day. Oh, you hallucinated that? That didn't happen. Anyway, she was real, but then became an illusion. And definitely she went when she was battling her, she didn't really battle her. She was battling her, but that was an illusion, and she was really fighting herself. So she wanted to incarnate her by, she wanted to embody her. Yeah, well, that was one of the ways of taking on the shadow aspect. But anyway, there's definitely there's a lot more symbolism in there. But I think we're going to move on to another one. Which one do you want to talk about first? Hello.
Oh, hey, for me,
Hi. Yes.
I'm primarily going to I'm going to talk about two 90s cult classic films that I hope everybody has seen, and that there shouldn't be spoilers because, my God, it's, 25 years into the new millennium, and if you haven't seen these films, like plug up your ears or leave the stream
You
and
know what?
go
They,
watch both of them twice and then come back to this.
people have said they're not too worried about spoilers, so go
Okay.
for it.
I'm going to mostly talk about the one I know the most about. And secondarily, I'm going to talk about the other ones some because of similar themes and because both of them emerging from a kind of 1990s neo-noir aesthetic that had a relatively short lifespan, um, for a number of complicated reasons. But the biggest complicating reason was 9/11. People who have never been close to or worked in the publishing industry might not realize this, but after 9/11, mainstream publishing went cold on fiction with anything bordering on domestic terrorism, say, as a theme. There were loads of manuscripts that just died on 9/11. In other words, things that happened in the late 90s, like Fight Club, could not get published, could not get made after 2001 for, understandable big cultural reasons. A lot of what had come to be known as transgressive fiction was instantly outre after a calamity of that scale.
Mhm.
But what was happening before 9/11 was an opportunity to explore some of these darker themes. Um, Chuck Palahniuk wrote Fight Club in 1997. It was released as a film that everybody knows in 99. And my other big cultural marker for shadow stuff in the 90s movies is going to be Donnie Darko, but admittedly, I know less about. I'm an aficionado, but I know less about it. And I've got some notes up in front of me, Susan. So please, if you notice anything juicy happening or anything important happening in the comments thread, I can only see so many screens at one time. It's fine to interrupt me
I will
to
do
help.
that. No worries. If people
Yeah,
ask you questions, I'll do that.
yeah. Please do. Please jump right in if somebody's got something. Um, it happens that I went to work on the official website for Chuck Palahniuk in 2003, and I was there for about a decade. Um, I've been to some big events that are connected. I've met him a few times. And I have some fun stories. I have some fun side stories. But the main reason that I picked these films, besides hopefully everybody having seen them, and so spoilers is less of a deal, is that we're talking about shadow
Oh,
themes.
Lee asked that you worked. Lee said, Mark, you did what? So maybe you want to tell people a little more. They're probably interested in what you did with him.
Oh, well, it's not so much direct work, but Chuck knows my name, right? I worked on his website for about a decade. I was first a member there in the very early 2000s, and I started volunteering. And my volunteer work became sort of something with an honorarium or a stipend attached to it, and then it became more of a salary job later on when the portion of the website that served developing writers who wanted to workshop their things took on a life of its own, and like we had a dedicated domain for it for a while. It became something else, but that's what I was doing. Like I was shepherding the writers, and I was helping people in the context of a writer's workshop to give useful critiques that weren't too scathing, right? Be tough on the work but kind to the person. I was teaching everything I just learned as a philosophy major and creative writing minor at a state university, at a humble state university. Um, I'd done tons of workshopping time with people who had MFAs from various places. I knew the Iowa approach to that sort of thing. So I was just in the right place at the right time. And it led to things like, New York and Portland and an interesting life. It was a turning point in my life. I was director of education in this virtual space when my wife was a creative writing student there, and we knew each other online for 7 years before we ever met in the flesh.
Wow.
So, where I'm sitting right now in the middle of Georgia and my daughter's existence are strangely enough contingent on the things I'm talking about.
You're getting a lot of comments back about how cool that is.
And it all started because I was a 30-something boy in the late 90s who watched Fight Club. And that was a thematic axis for it, that a whole generation of people, for me, that's Generation X, right, on the younger side of it, but a whole generation of people, how did Tyler Durden put it? You've been brought up to believe you're going to be rock stars, you're going to be movie stars, and all of that is bullshit. None of that's true, and you're very, very pissed off. He said, our Great Depression is our lives. And it turned out that maybe Tyler Durden wasn't really there, much like in your Black Swan example, right?
Mhm.
He was the narrator, Joe in the book and Jack in the film, I think it goes, but most people just say the narrator, right? The Ed Norton character. His inner Tyler Durden was showing up in his life and punching him in the face. It has similar problems if you're being literal minded about it in terms of plausibility. Like if this guy was thought he was having a fight with Tyler Durden, but he was actually punching himself in the face, would anybody have followed his lead on anything? Would an organization have developed around him? There are things that plainly don't make sense. We have to exercise willing suspension of disbelief on that point, as is often the case with fiction,
Mhm.
because it's a very complex metaphor for that shadow portion of ourselves, that repressed portion that, drives like you want to drive, fucks like you want to fuck, talks like you want to talk, but you've always been too timid. That was something that spoke to a whole generation of disaffected and alienated young men, including some who had gone down that corporate track. So there's a feature in there of not only how we deal with existential crisis, but how we deal with existential crisis amid consumerism, right? If you recall, our main character is working a corporate job and he's constantly ordering the latest thing from IKEA that will make his life complete.
I need to watch it again. It was the only one that I didn't watch in leading up to this. A lot of things I do remember, and like I told you when we talked, I really like Meatloaf's performance. He was
Oh yeah,
amazing. He was amazing.
he
Yeah.
was so good. He was so good as Big Bob.
Yeah.
I mean, it was funny, right? He went into the high part of his register where he sang and he spoke like that because he was surviving. We're men remaining men together
Yeah.
without our testicles,
Yeah.
because that's what you could do with transgressive fiction in the 90s. You could have a support group for survivors of testicular cancer, and you could be just as lewd about that as you wanted, right? Meatloaf walks in and he's Big Bob, and the narrator says, Bob had bitch tits. There
Mhm.
was Big Bob, already shrink wrapped in tears, waiting to hug me, the big moosey, the big cheese bread. And it's so irreverent, but the voice was so compelling that
Yeah,
people like me, people with my lowbrow sensibilities, were instantly hooked.
he was brilliant in that. Morg just said Fight Club is a great movie, up there in my top 10 list. I mean, yeah, it was oh, you should watch it, which was Whisper. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I'm going to watch it again. I just didn't have time this week.
So we're talking about alter egos for sure, like with Black Swan, right?
Hmm.
Tyler Durden is an alter to the narrator in Fight Club. He's an alpha. He's a submerged alpha, which is a really interesting concept. If you think about the most assertive, aggressive, out there, even extroverted version of yourself, right? If you're naturally an introvert, imagine if your shadow self shows up and it's an extrovert and it's charismatic. That's kind of
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it also has so much to say thematically about the world we're living in, where consumerism doesn't really fulfill anybody, where one more acquisition doesn't do it, because you're not the contents of your bank account or your wallet. You're not your beige slacks that are acceptable for work casual at your job. You're not your fucking IKEA furniture, which I think gets exploded and blown out a window at one point, but we'll get there, right? It struck a nerve. It struck a nerve. And of course, it's full of paradox. It's full of irony. Nobody would know about it if it didn't get made in Hollywood with Brad Pitt attached. So imagine the irony of super pretty boy Brad Pitt, multimillionaire, telling you that you're too attached to material
Hmm.
things. But that's kind of where we were in the late 90s.
Somebody said, I watched it so many times, I had to buy the book. Dude, Abides, Dude
The Dude
Abides,
Abides.
Dude Abides. Yeah.
Dude
Um,
Abides. That's a big Lebowski reference, but it
oh,
ties
is
in
it? Okay.
nicely. Yeah, yeah.
Dude Abides. Are you new, by the way? If you are, welcome. Um, I I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of people who comment, and I sometimes don't know if it's your first time. Also, I just noticed you said you are Jack's severe disappointment earlier, up in the comments.
Very good. Yes.
Lee says, I can't believe I missed out on this Brad Pitt movie for so long.
Really? Sinfully has never seen Fight Club.
No, he has,
Oh, he
but
has.
not
Yes.
for, yeah, not for. I'm pretty sure you have. Oh, Shutter Island. Lee said Secret Window was really good too, and
Oh,
then
yeah,
I missed
yeah.
when you brought up Shutter
Shutter
Island.
Island's fantastic.
Yes, I need to watch that one again. That threw me, like I was not expecting that at all. And I'm usually not disappointed in Leonardo DiCaprio's performances. His movies he picks are usually really, really good. Um, well then, welcome, Dude Abides. and you followed a share from Morg. Well, let me just tell you, and for anybody else who's out there, because normally Philip, who's here, my co-host, who's away right now on vacation, normally Philip remembers to say that our channel is devoted to the Neogenian system, which is what Morg talks about often. But our channel talks mostly about Neogenian material. So every once in a while we'll explore something else, something that has a little bit of a connection to other things as well. But we really focus a lot here on Neogenian content. So everybody here is always welcome to ask questions about the Neogenian system, anything that you heard about but want some clarification on. And of course, we always recommend Morg's book series if you're interested in the Neogenian content. But that's what we do here. And so welcome to our channel. Chaos Rave and Raven Tiffany says, I had to watch Shutter Island a few times to understand it. And yeah, it was pretty complicated. It was pretty intense. I really enjoyed that movie. And then Secret Window was good. So you've never seen Fight Club or Black Swan. I hope you do watch them, and I think you'll really like them. So do you have more that you would like to explore in terms of Fight Club? Because it's got a lot of material in there. And I would be saying more if I had watched it recently.
That's fine. It's got it's got insomnia as a sort of analog for spiritual death, right? The narrator never sleeps. You wake up at Dallas Fort Worth. You wake up at JFK, right? He's a corporate guy, so he's an insurance adjuster. He's waking up at airports. Doesn't remember where he's been. Doesn't remember the last time he's had a good night's sleep. And he goes to 12-step meetings of all kinds as a gawker, as a spectator, because after hearing strangers pour out their guts about the worst things in their lives, he gets better quality sleep. Like he can't get it from a doctor. He can't get it from a pill. The doctor says, choose some valerian root and get some exercise and get out of my face, right? So the guy's going to these 12-step meetings, and that's where he meets Marla Singer.
Right.
Marla Singer, the big tourist, right? She had no business being there either, but she's as eerie as, I don't know, someone who shows up at strangers' funerals just from the love of funerals. They're both doing the same thing, right? But somehow it isn't morally equivalent. That's kind of the setup. That's kind of the premise that lets us run deep into themes that have to do with a critique of consumerism. The quote is, "We're the middle children of history, man, no purpose or place." Uh, People are searching for authentic identity, but they're trapped in things, in acquisitions, in spreadsheets. That's kind of the vibe that leads to even darker things cracking open. And that's what connects it to Black Swan, right? The alter ego as an initiator, right? As a liberator or a mentor or an instigator who's going to show up in your life when you least expect it and crack that shell you've been living inside of. That's what's galvanizing about it. Because to some extent, we've all gotten routinized. We've become routine. We've become robotic in some facet of our lives where we would prefer to be spontaneous, authentic, empathetic, or even aggressive, depending on the situation. And society has tamed all of that out of us and given us artificial goals, which is probably a decent bridge to the other 90s cult classic I was going to talk about just a little bit, which is Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
Are people in the comments fans? Have people generally seen Donnie Darko?
Yeah, I just watched it again. That was one of the ones I did watch because I had seen it such a long time. All of these movies I had seen such a long time ago. And I watched one of Jan's. I still don't know where Jan is, but I watched one of the ones that Jan was going to talk about. but I didn't really, it was a complicated movie and I didn't really understand where the shadow content was completely. But I think Donnie Darko is going to be one that many people have seen. Um, I got a lot more out of it, more likes that one too. Chaos and Raven said seen it years ago. I had seen it years ago. Lee said the same thing. Halo said it was good. Um, Angela, have you seen Donnie Darko? Um, Lee said there's a Netflix series called Maniac, which was fantastic. Uh, I'm going to write that down. Maniac. Yeah, everybody get out a piece of paper, write down all the stuff you want to watch.
Right.
Dude Abides says now need to watch Donnie Darko, high priority. Yeah, I got a lot more out of it this time. I was pretty confused the first time I saw it, so it just goes to show you rewatch a movie, you'll get more out of it. Violet says, hi Violet, never seen that movie. Angela has seen it. And what was the one? Maniac on Netflix. I'll check it out. Thank you. So
Without spoiling it too much, I would maybe just say that time travel a little bit is an element of it. We deal with bifurcating timelines, like you pull two fortunes from the same cookie in Donnie Darko, and that isn't maybe super apparent from the opening scene. That there are two possibilities for the way this kid's life is going to play out, and he's on one of those timelines while the other one kind of exists concurrently. So it's a little bit complex, but it's so worth it. It's so worthwhile.
um
And it gets us into similar territory with submerged or shadow content. He's always talking to Frank. Nobody else can see Frank, right? Who's this 6 foot tall guy in a rabbit suit, and it's just horrifying. Like the mask for the rabbit is
very
completely
scary.
gruesome and scary looking. And he
Yeah.
shows up in visions or in sleep, in half sleep states. If he nods off at the movies or on his sofa, there's Frank because he's in Twilight, he's in lucid dreaming or something like that. And pff, there's the giant rabbit, and he looks at him and says, "Why are you always wearing that stupid rabbit suit?" And Frank says, "Why are you always wearing that stupid human suit?"
Yeah. Famous line. Famous line. Um yeah, I would definitely recommend watching both as well. Um if you have the time, Spookadelic says. Laura says, I think Donnie Darko is one of those movies you either really like or just don't. Yeah, I can see that. The first time I watched it, I think I was more confused at trying to figure out like what was going on. I did understand the ending. I did understand what was happening in the end. Um, one of the things, one of the questions I had, yeah, the ending explains it. Um, does anybody remember the very end when the camera pans outside and you see the family and you see the father and the sister and you see the mother? Do you remember the look on the mother's face? And especially because the girlfriend comes up on her bike or walking and I think waves at the mother. Do you remember the look on the mother's face? Because that threw me. I didn't know what to make of that. And I'm just wondering if anybody has any insight. Um, that's okay, Laura. Don't worry about it. Oh, Invisible Monster. You were the one who made that comment. Yeah, I meant to make a note that that's another checkbook.
It is.
Also, oh, somebody mentioned reading the book, Fight Club. Is the book, and I wanted to ask you, Mark, is the book very similar to the movie? Because oftentimes books are, well, usually books are better. But sometimes movies really butcher the story or change it. And I'm not saying the movie wasn't good because I really love the movie.
Oh,
But
I'd say it's a very faithful
yeah,
adaptation.
is it? Okay.
The book, from Chuck's writing style has a really kind of cinematic lens. It has a cinematic bias in the writing.
Mm-hmm.
It began as a series of short stories that he
Mm-hmm.
intertwined and kind of grew into a novel.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody remembers the Raymond K. Hessel scene, right? Raymond K. Hessel, the community college student and chronic underachiever who's challenged to remake his life and go back to school if he wants to live another day, right? They scare the living shit out of Raymond K. Hessel.
I don't remember
That
that.
that started as a completely separate story called Human Sacrifice. That was its own short story called Human Sacrifice. It got woven together with the original short story Fight Club and embroidered, sort of got quilted into a novel. Uh, before
Huh.
Chuck was known, before he was known at all, he was really doing short fiction. And
You know what I just read, not just yesterday, I think, is that Fight Club started out as just like a short story, which was just like one chapter. Oh, hang on. Something's happening with I think somebody might need some help. Hang on. One of my husband or my mother. So I'm going to go away for a minute. Just, Mark, hold down the fort.
okay, no worries.
I will be right back. Um,
Yeah, I agree with you, dude. Abides. Books are almost always better when you've got the time for them. Yeah, but with Fight Club, everybody saw the movie first and then read the book and then read some other books by the same author. I do know some people who weren't readers at all until that moment, and now they've been readers for 25 years. So fiction has that power sometimes, and it's fine if it reaches us through the cinema first.
Yes, I have your wallet. It's on my dresser. I'm trying to clean the stairs off. The guys are coming tomorrow. What else?
A fun aside, one of those weird offbeat stories that I know about Chuck. Chuck Palahniuk, the author of Fight Club, who is not Brad Pitt, who is not Edward Norton, um, who is not recognizable to the average person who's only seen the film, right? Chuck went to Portland, Oregon, and he's kind of from the area, like he lives in Washington State. But Laura might know about this. Portland has something called the Portland Underground Tour, where a guide will take you submerged, literally, beneath the city. Like there's this old sunken section of the city, and you can see things down there that haven't been fit for human occupation for 70 years or whatever. It's maybe marginally safe. But Chuck Palahniuk shows up just like any other guy in the crowd to go on the Portland Underground tour. And this kind of Tyler Durden-esque tour guide pops out there with a cowboy hat on and ripped flannels and whiskey on his breath. And from the get-go, he's like, all right, first rule of the Portland Underground Tour is you do not talk about the Portland Underground Tour. And the second rule of the Portland Underground Tour is you do not talk about the Portland Underground Tour. Polinick says, wait. He's a really gentle, soft-spoken guy. He's like, I'm sorry, but I just have to interrupt you. I must know. Do you say this patter all the time, or are you only doing this because I'm here? Cowboy looks at Polinick and says, who are you? Chuck says, I'm Chuck Palahniuk. I wrote Fight Club. Cowboy tour guy says, you mean it was a book? So, yeah, a lot of people had the experience of only knowing it as a film. And
Wow.
that's the kind of experience that you have in life when you're famous being an author, because you're hyper famous for a select group of readers and you're invisible to everybody else, which has some advantages.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless you're like, Stephen King or something,
Yeah.
where people, most people know, Stephen King. But that was a funny story. I missed the beginning of it, but um, did you guys finish? Yeah, sorry, I had to go away. Things happen. um, but anyway, I'm back. And did you finish talking about Donnie Darko?
I just totally side tangent on the Portland Underground tour.
That's fine. That's fine.
Just
Mark
a
has
segue, just a
Mark
space
has
filler.
many, yeah, interesting stories. Um, well, I'm assuming that Jan is not going to make it here, and we're coming down to the last 10 minutes. So, do you just want to talk very briefly about the other movie? There's other movies you guys have mentioned that have really good content in them. But the other one that I watched again for tonight was because I thought we were sort of going to do horror movies. And this was one that came to mind. It's called Us. And I really liked it when I saw it, but just like years ago, and then I watched it again. When I watched it the second time, the things like that Mark had talked about that you have to suspend your disbelief on for Fight Club, the things that you need to suspend your disbelief on for the movie Us bothered me more the second time I saw it. I think when you don't know anything and you're just watching a movie for the first time, you're just taking it all in. You're not necessarily scrutinizing it. Lee really liked Us. Yeah, who was the writer for that? I like his movies, and I thought that the acting was really good. What you have to suspect, it's about the idea that there's for everyone of us who live like up Jordan Peele, thank you, who live up here on the surface, just all of us, there's a counterpart, like a doppelganger, that lives literally underground. The movie starts by telling you that there are vast tunnels and sewers and like mine systems across the United States. And that would account for where these people live. Immediately there's issues with that because there's not enough of them to actually portray the actions that we do, that the people who like the doppelgangers have to also perform based on what we do. So if you're eating something, your doppelganger has to eat something. But they really just go through the motions. And they don't speak. They kind of just grunt and scream. It's a horror movie. It's definitely a horror movie. It kind of has purge elements to it. Because what happens is at some point, those down underneath come up. In fact, there's an opening scene somewhere in the opening where there's some videos that are stacked up on a shelf in the main character's home, and the movie Chud is one of them. And if you've ever seen that, it's those subterranean humanoid cannibalistic people. And that's the kind of idea, not that they're cannibals, but that they live underneath. And it's pretty much a parallel world. I didn't like the explanation that the movie gave, which was very brief, for why they exist. And I wasn't thrilled with the explanation of how they existed down there. But, if you push that aside and just go for the horror elements and the plot of what they do when they come up, it's about a girl. It starts out when she's quite young. I don't know. I think she was like 8 years old, and she goes into it was her birthday, and she was on the boardwalk by the beach, and she goes into like a fun house that literally says over the door, like find yourself. And there's mirrors inside. So again, we have this facing yourself, finding yourself, looking at inside, and she discovers another little girl who, at least she sees the back of her head and looks just like her from behind, and all you see is your the main character's eyes widen, and then next thing you know, her parents have brought her home. There was 15 minutes of her being unaccounted for, and she's like traumatized and won't talk. So the next thing you know, she's grown up. All of that happens very quickly. Then she's grown up, married, and has 2 kids, a boy and a girl. And she has a severe like avoidance to going to this to the ocean, where it's just where her husband wants to take her. They're on vacation, and then one night, this family of 4 kind of lookalikes, doppelgangers, appears on the end of the driveway, and very creepy things then happen, and it turns out that everyone's doppelganger has now come up. Her counterpart, known as Red, who has a very, very raspy voice, played really spectacularly by Lupita, and I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I think it's Nyong'o, who was the reason that I really liked the movie the first time I saw it, because of her performance, just solely on her performance. She was amazing, and she basically tells the story. She's the only one who talks out of all of them, the doppelgangers, and she basically explains how they exist and how they suffer because of the people who live the good life up here. So the parts I liked about it, is that it is very creepy, very creepy. The parts I liked about it was that it talked about a collective shadow, not just one character. It also has this reference to, it's like literally they live underground and are like supporting what's above. We get to live our lives, but because we do, there are people who suffer, and they make it very clear. There's at one point she says, "We are Americans." The shadow character, the doppelganger, Red, says, "We are Americans. We are, in other words, we are people." Yes, exactly, Lee. Lee said, yes, I'm so glad you picked up on that too. And one of the really interesting, they use mirrors too because of that mirror building in the beginning, but also the movie in the beginning when she was like 8 was in 1986, I think, and that was when they had Hands Across America, which I remember because I'm old enough, and that I didn't remember what that movement was for, what that event was for, but I do remember people like forming a chain of people holding hands, and it was for hunger. It was for eliminating hunger. And also, before I forget to mention this, US could very well also, it does also stand for US, United States. It could very well be the United States that we're talking about, which is actually quite clever. But that idea of joining hands and the across the country is mirrored by the doppelgangers who come up. They want to join their hands. They want to be seen. It's as a sort of like as a mirror image of the thing that happened in 1986, which is actually coincidentally when she was 8 and encountered her counterpart, basically. So there was a lot of really good elements. Yeah, Lee really liked it. There was a lot of very clever elements in it. Again, there is gore, and there's a lot of the doppelgangers. They're killing their counterparts up here. They've had enough. Basically, they've had enough being down there. But she's the only one who talks, and she is the one who organized this. It took a long time, a lot of planning, and if you notice in the the thumbnail, or just look up the movie itself, look up the movie poster. She's holding a pair of scissors. Every doppelganger was provided a pair of scissors, and this I didn't catch myself. I read it, and it should be obvious. Scissors have two components, and they're joined at a single point. One of the things they talked about in this very brief explanation of why they exist, how the doppelgangers came to be, which I didn't find satisfying, but it doesn't really matter if you suspend that. But it was somebody somewhere, some people discovered how to make duplicate bodies, but not a duplicate soul. So they have to kind of share the soul, I think. And the scissors are a really good metaphor for that. They're also a really good metaphor for cutting, like ending things, chopping things. And that happens a lot in the movie. So yes, you don't like gore. I mean, there's definitely scary moments, but it's not, I don't like slasher movies, so I won't watch something that's purely a slasher movie unless there's a really good reason to. But anyway, there was the reason I liked it, even though it had some issues in terms of that, the things that you have to suspend belief on, which usually I have a hard time pushing away. It'll bother me. It wasn't that hard to do because I enjoyed the rest of the elements. Did you tell me whether you saw that one or not, and whether you liked it, Mark?
Oh no, actually I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, put it on your list.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see what you guys think of that. The tunnels are legit, and there are submerged things. There are none of that was the issue. Is that I don't think there was enough of it. I think there's a lot of it, but not enough. When they showed what the doppelgangers had to do to match what was happening up here, it didn't mesh with where you'd have to be, because they had narrow corridors and rooms, a lot. That was only one area where we saw them, and she actually returns to it at the end of the movie. They didn't show many other around the country areas where those same like things were being enacted. But again, you don't need that in order to appreciate the movie and get the symbolism out of it. So I can't believe the hour is over already, and we covered just the 4 movies we were going to do: Phantom of the Opera and the Paprika, which were Jan's. I hope Jan is okay. But what I want to do in the member stream, and hopefully Mark will hop in for that one too, it's going to be like just a free for all on horror movies.
We have seen some recent ones that we would be
Yes.
afraid to spoil for people, but
Um,
weapons, we've both recently seen weapons and
I watched it because I found out just a couple of days ago that Mark likes horror movies, you and your partner, and my partner does not like horror movies. So that's a problem. But
Hey, Alberto.
yeah, but hi Alberto. But you're lucky. So, and Mark told me about weapons, and
Weapons.
I really wanted to see it. And then the next day, Mark's like, "It's out, you can watch it." So I dropped everything. It's the reason I didn't watch Fight Club, to be honest, because I needed to see this one. And horror's all you watch, Angela. Well, I have to watch other things because of my family. I have to watch loads of stuff for my husband and mother every night. But anyway, I really enjoyed Weapons, and I'm so glad you told me about it. It was worth pushing Fight Club to the side just to see it. I have to say, I'll watch Fight Club, but again, because I want to. But I really liked that, and so I really liked Weapons.
Let's tease one little piece of that before we go off to the members. Tell me about your reaction when Justine, the school teacher, is sitting outside the posh Atlanta suburban homes It's not set in Atlanta, but that's where they made it. I recognize the place. She's sitting out there in her Toyota RAV4, dozing off outside the home of the only student she has remaining. Nobody knows where all the other kids went. And some person comes out of that house with a pair of scissors and gets in the car with her.
Yeah. Did I tell you that that was the thing? We haven't talked about it, have we?
Did that make you like claw your skin
That was
off?
the thing for me. Who did I just tell that to? My memory's so bad.
I don't know.
I told that just to somebody. I was messaging a friend earlier. We're going to talk about this afterward because that scene was the scene. Especially the door opens, it's dark, dark
Right.
inside the house, and you're looking at the dark door for a good few seconds before anything happens. And then the scary, it was very, very scary. Okay, I'm glad that was I'm glad that was, yes, exactly.
That was the signature scene, and no, I hadn't asked you about your reaction to it until just now.
And especially when she gets to the car
Oh my
and then
God.
goes sideways out of the frame. Okay, now you guys all have to watch Weapons and then meet back here. Rob Zombie, good movies, yes. Okay, and hi to somebody else just came in that I just saw. Who was that? Michael Hayes. Hi, yes, House of a Thousand Corpses. I need to watch that again. I own the copy. I own a copy of that. And good, yeah, good stuff. Tamara was a good one. Don't care for the ending, a really high school mentality, but the psychological breakdown are interesting. Okay. Sweeney Todd, that's another one I really want to watch again. I have not seen that in forever. And Philip sings, what's the song that Philip is always singing from that movie? It's so funny. I don't know, but Philip's hilarious. And we'll be back. Philip will be back for our next live stream. But anyway, we're going to scoot out of here and then right into the members and just have a really good time talking about horror movies and stuff. So it's been really fun. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Morg, so much. I forgot to say thank you. I saw your super chat. Really appreciate it. And really appreciate everybody who came and joined in on this for our holiday special. And we will see you hopefully in a couple of weeks. Okay, I'm just going to end the stream. Bye, you guys. See you over look on our board. Look on our community board.
Where do people look for that now? Is it under...
go. I've posted the link to the member stream. It is posted. It's there. Okay, bye, you guys.
See you in a minute.
Okay, and